The gunshot echoed through the cemetery just as Alessandro Rixai fell to his knees before the small white tombstone. His daughter, his Arya, gone for 3 years and still the grief tore through him like fresh bullets. Blood dripped from his knuckles where he'd punched the marble in rage and despair. Then a voice, soft and trembling, cut through the silence. A homeless girl with haunted green eyes whispered the impossible. "She's alive! I saw her yesterday." Alessandro's world shattered and rebuilt in the space of a heartbeat, something awakening in his chest he thought had died with his child. Welcome to Mafia Home Tale, besties. Please like, share, and subscribe. Alessandro Rixai didn't believe in miracles anymore. The cemetery stretched before him in the fading October light, rows of stone witnesses to loss and grief. He came here every week, always alone, always at dusk when his men knew better than to follow. The most feared man in New York, the Don who'd built an empire on blood and strategy, reduced to this, kneeling in the dirt before a grave that held his entire world. Arya Marie Rixai, beloved daughter. The headstone was simple, clean. He'd chosen it himself 3 years ago when his ex-wife had been too destroyed by grief to function. The day they'd buried an empty casket because they'd never found her body after the explosion. The day Alessandro had sworn vengeance on everyone responsible and delivered it with methodical brutality over the following months. But vengeance didn't fill the hole. It didn't bring her back. His phone buzzed. He ignored it. Let the empire burn for an hour. Let his underboss handle whatever crisis demanded attention. Nothing mattered more than this, these stolen moments where he could pretend she might somehow know he still came, still remembered, still loved her with everything he had left. The girl appeared so quietly, he didn't notice her until she spoke. "You come here every Thursday at 6. Alessandro's hand moved to his weapon instinctively, but he froze when he saw her. Young, maybe 22 or 23, with tangled auburn hair and eyes that had seen too much too soon. She wore layers of worn clothing, a backpack slung over one shoulder. Homeless, he registered automatically, not a threat. He should have told her to leave, should have called his security. Instead, something in those haunted green eyes held him still. "I sleep behind the mausoleum sometimes," she continued, gesturing vaguely toward the ornate structure 50 feet away. "It's safe here, quiet." She paused, studying him with unnerving directness. "You always bring white roses, you never speak, you just sit with her." Alessandro found his voice, cold and controlled despite the intrusion. "You're trespassing on private grief. Leave." "I would." Her chin lifted slightly, a flash of defiance cutting through what looked like perpetual exhaustion. "But I have to tell you something first, about your daughter." The world tilted. Alessandro stood slowly, every predatory instinct engaging. "What did you say?" The girl took a step back, fear flickering across her face, but she held her ground. "Arya, that's her name, right? The girl in the picture you leave every week." She pulled something from her pocket, a small photograph, worn and faded, the same one he brought to the grave religiously. "She's alive. I saw her 2 days ago." Impossible. Insane. The words of someone looking for money or attention or both. But Alessandro didn't move. Couldn't. Because something in her eyes, some terrible, desperate honesty, made his heart forget how to beat properly. "Explain." The single word carried the weight of command that made grown men confess their sins. The girl, to her credit, didn't flinch. 3 days ago, I was at the shelter on Morrison Street. There was a new girl there, maybe 15 or 16. She had this necklace. She touched her own throat. A little gold heart with an A engraved on it. I noticed because my name starts with a 2, Abigail. Alessandro's blood ran cold. Arya's necklace. The one thing they'd never found after the explosion. The one thing he'd given her for her 10th birthday had clasped around her neck himself, promising to keep her safe always. He'd failed that promise. "That could be any necklace," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Abigail shook her head. "I thought so too, until she dropped it and I picked it up. Inside the heart there's an inscription. 'My little Arya, love always, Papa.'" She met his eyes. "I asked her where she got it. She got scared, grabbed it back, and ran. But Mr. Rixai, she looked exactly like the girl in your picture. Older, thinner, terrified, but her eyes." They're the same. The photograph fell from Alessandro's numb fingers. Later that night, Alessandro sat in his office, the city sprawling beneath him through floor-to-ceiling windows. His men had brought Abigail here at his orders, though he'd instructed them to be gentle. She sat across from him now, cleaned up slightly, fear and exhaustion warring in her expression. "Tell me everything," he commanded. "From the beginning, every detail." Abigail wrapped her hands around the cup of coffee his housekeeper had brought. "I've been homeless for 8 months, since my parents died. I move between shelters, try to stay off the streets at night." She swallowed hard. "Morrison Street shelter takes walk-ins. No questions, no ID required. It's where people go when they're running from something." Alessandro leaned forward. "Running from what?" "Anything. Abusive partners, family, the system." She paused. "Or whoever took them in the first place." The implication hung heavy in the air. Alessandro's hands curled into fists on the mahogany desk. "You think she was taken, held somewhere, escaped recently?" "I don't know for sure," Abigail said carefully, "but the way she acted, she was terrified, like a trapped animal. When I asked about the necklace, she looked at me like I was going to hurt her. Then she just ran." "Where?" "I don't know. I tried to follow, but she was fast, desperate." Abigail set down her cup. "I thought about going to the police, but I figured they'd think I was crazy. A homeless girl claiming to have seen a dead kid alive. They'd laugh me out of the station." She was right. They would have. Which meant she'd come to him instead, to the cemetery, waiting for the right moment, risking his anger to tell him the impossible. Alessandro studied her, really looked at her for the first time. Beneath the exhaustion and grime of street life, she was beautiful. Soft curves, delicate features, those extraordinary green eyes that seemed to see too much. And something else, something that made his chest tighten unexpectedly. Bravery, compassion. She'd come here not for money or reward, but because she thought a father should know his daughter might be alive. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why tell me? Why risk approaching someone like me?" Abigail met his gaze steadily. "Because if my father was alive, I'd want someone to tell him if they'd seen me. I'd want him to know I was still fighting to get back to him." Her voice cracked slightly. "And because that little girl looked so scared. If there's even a chance she's really your daughter, she needs her father to find her." Something shifted in Alessandro's chest. Something dangerous and unfamiliar after years of ice. The next morning, Alessandro mobilized every resource at his disposal. His men flooded Morrison Street shelter and the surrounding neighborhoods with photos of Arya, age progressed to what she might look like now at 16. They questioned staff, searched security footage, interviewed every person who'd been at the shelter that night. Nothing. The girl had vanished like smoke. But Alessandro wasn't a man who accepted defeat. He expanded the search. Every shelter in the city, every abandoned building, every place a scared teenager might hide. He offered rewards for information, put the word out through channels both legal and otherwise. And he kept Abigail close. Not because he didn't trust her, but because she was the only link to Arya he had. The only person who'd seen her, spoken to her, could identify her if they found her. That's what he told himself anyway, ignoring the way his eyes tracked her movements through his penthouse, the way something settled in his chest when she was nearby. She'd been given a guest room, new clothes, access to food and safety for the first time in months. His housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, had taken one look at Abigail's exhausted face and immediately gone into protective grandmother mode. Within 24 hours, Abigail had gained 5 pounds from Mrs. Chen's cooking and looked less like she might collapse at any moment. "You don't have to do this," Abigail said on the third day, finding him in his office at midnight. "Let me stay here, I told you everything I know." Alessandro looked up from the surveillance reports covering his desk. She stood in the doorway wearing one of the silk robes Mrs. Chen had provided, her hair damp from a shower, curves visible beneath the fabric in a way that made him forget to breathe for a moment. He cleared his throat. "You have nowhere else to go." "I've managed before." "Not well," he gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit, please." She hesitated, then complied. Alessandro poured 2 glasses of whiskey, slid one across to her. You gave me hope when I had none. The least I can do is ensure you're safe and cared for while we search." Abigail picked up the glass, swirled the amber liquid. "And if we never find her? If I was wrong, if it wasn't really Arya? Then I'll still owe you a debt." Alessandro leaned back. "You came to me out of compassion. That's rare in my world, practically extinct." "Your world seems lonely," she observed quietly. He smiled without humor. "It is, but it's necessary. Power requires isolation. Trust is a luxury men like me can't afford." "Do you trust me?" The question caught him off guard. Alessandro considered it, really considered it, and found the answer unsettling. "More than I should. More than I've trusted anyone in a very long time." Abigail met his eyes. "I won't betray that trust. Whatever happens, whatever we find or don't find, I won't use your hope against you." Something warm unfurled in Alessandro's chest. Something that had been frozen for 3 years. "I believe you." A week passed, then 2. The search continued, relentless and thorough. Alessandro's men turned the city inside out, but the girl remained a ghost. Abigail stayed at the penthouse, slowly coming back to life under Mrs. Chen's care and Alessandro's protection. They fell into an unexpected routine. Breakfast together, where she'd read the news while he reviewed reports. Evenings in his office, where she'd curl up in the leather chair with a book while he worked, her presence somehow both calming and electrifying. Late nights talking about everything and nothing, sharing pieces of themselves they'd kept hidden from the world. Alessandro learned she'd been a literature student before her parents' accident, that she'd loved to write, had dreamed of being a novelist, that she'd chosen homelessness over going into a system that felt more dangerous than the streets. Abigail learned that beneath the ruthless dawn exterior, Alessandro was a father drowning in grief, that he read bedtime stories to an empty room sometimes, that he'd built an empire but would burn it all down for one more day with his daughter. And beneath the grief and the searching, beneath the impossible situation that had brought them together, something else grew. Something neither of them acknowledged but both felt with increasing intensity. The way Alessandro's eyes tracked her movements, the way Abigail's breath caught when he stood too close, the accidental touches that lingered too long, the charged silences that spoke louder than words. One evening, Abigail found him in Arya's room. He kept it exactly as it had been the day she disappeared, frozen in time, waiting for a girl who might never come home. "I shouldn't be here," Alessandro said quietly, not turning from where he stood by the window. "I should be searching, working, doing something useful, but sometimes I just need to remember her." Abigail moved beside him carefully. "Tell me about her. Not the investigation, not the loss, just her. Who was she?" Alessandro's throat worked. When he spoke, his voice was raw. She was sunshine, loud and bright and impossible to ignore. She loved to dance, would perform entire routines she made up herself. She'd wake me up at 6 in the morning to show me a new move. He smiled through the pain. "She wanted to be a ballerina. I bought her the best teachers, the best equipment. She said I was spoiling her. I told her that was a father's job." "She sounds wonderful," Abigail said softly. She is." Alessandro turned to face her. "If she's alive, if we find her, I need you to know something. Whatever she's been through, whatever happened to her in these years, it won't change how I love her. I'll tear down the world to make her safe again." Abigail looked up at him, and the emotion in her eyes stole his breath. "I know you will. That's who you are. Under all the power and fear, you're just a father who loves his daughter. That's the first thing I saw in the cemetery. Not the dawn, just the dad." Alessandro's hand lifted seemingly of its own volition, cupping her face with surprising gentleness. "How do you do that? See through everything?" "I just pay attention," she whispered. "Most people don't, but you deserve to be seen, Alessandro, all of you." The moment hung between them, electric and dangerous. Alessandro should have stepped back, should have maintained the professional distance he'd barely managed to keep these 2 weeks. But her skin was so soft, her eyes so honest, and it had been so long since anyone had looked at him like he was human instead of powerful. "Abigail," he started, not sure what he intended to say. His phone shattered the moment. Alessandro jerked back, pulled the device from his pocket. His underboss. He answered, professional mask sliding into place. What? Boss, we got a hit. Security camera from a bodega 3 blocks from Morrison Shelter. Girl matching the age-progressed photo, wearing the necklace. She bought food 2 days ago. Alessandro's heart stopped. Send me the footage, lock down the area. I want every building searched, every person questioned. Find her. He hung up, looked at Abigail. They found her, maybe, on camera. Abigail's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. I need to go. Alessandro headed for the door, then stopped, turned back. Come with me. If it's really her, if we find her, she might be scared. She'll need to see a kind face. Someone who isn't me or my men. Abigail nodded immediately. Of course, let me get dressed. 15 minutes later, they were in Alessandro's car, speeding through the city with a security detail following. Alessandro's hands gripped the steering wheel with enough force to make his knuckles white. What if it's not her? He asked quietly. What if it's just another false lead? Abigail covered his hand with hers. Then we keep looking. But Alessandro, even if this doesn't pan out tonight, we're getting closer. She's out there. We're going to find her. He turned his hand over, laced their fingers together. When did you become my anchor? The same moment you became mine, she answered simply. They arrived at the bodega to find Alessandro's men already canvassing the area. The store owner, a nervous Pakistani man in his 50s, confirmed the sighting. Yes, she was here. Young girl, very thin, very scared. She bought bread and water, paid in cash, wouldn't look at me. Alessandro pulled up the age-progressed photo. This girl. The owner studied it. Could be, hard to say for sure, but the necklace, yes, I remember the necklace. Little gold heart, she kept touching it. Alessandro's chest constricted. Arya used to do that, touch the necklace when she was nervous. It was her tell. They searched for hours. Every alley, every doorway, every abandoned building within a mile radius. Alessandro's men were thorough and relentless, but careful. He'd made it clear that if they found her, they were to treat her gently. No force, no intimidation. She'd been through enough. But dawn came, and they'd found nothing. Alessandro stood in the alley behind the bodega as the sun rose, defeat weighing on his shoulders. Abigail approached quietly, pressed a coffee into his hands. She's close, Abigail said. I can feel it. She came here for food, which means she's staying nearby. She'll come back. Or she'll run farther. Alessandro's voice was hollow. The search might have scared her. My men, the questions. If she's running from something, we might have just made it worse. Then we'll find another way. Abigail stepped in front of him, forcing him to meet her eyes. We put up posters, gentle ones with just the necklace. A message that says you're looking for her, that you love her, that she's safe coming home. No pressure, no demands, just love. Alessandro stared at her. You're brilliant. She blushed. I just know what I'd want to hear if I was scared and alone. By midday, posters appeared all over the neighborhood. Simple, non-threatening, a picture of the necklace, a message. Arya, your papa loves you, come home safe. No questions, no pressure, just love. And a phone number. They waited. Alessandro paced his office, unable to focus on work. Abigail sat in the chair watching him, steady and patient. You should eat, she said finally. Mrs. Chen made lunch. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten in 24 hours. You're no good to Arya if you collapse. He turned on her, frustration boiling over. Don't manage me like I'm some project I don't need. His phone rang. Unknown number. Alessandro's hands shook as he answered. Hello. Silence, breathing, then a voice, small and terrified and achingly familiar. Papa. The world stopped turning. Alessandro couldn't breathe. 3 years of grief, of searching, of hopping against hope, crashed over him in a single moment. His daughter's voice, older but unmistakably hers, trembling through the phone line. Arya, his voice broke on her name. Bambina, where are you? More silence. He could hear her breathing fast and panicked. I saw the poster. Is it real? Are you really looking for me? Yes. Alessandro sank into his chair, gripping the phone like a lifeline. Yes, sweetheart. I've been looking for you every day since you disappeared. I never stopped. I never gave up. They said you thought I was dead. Her voice cracked. They said you had a funeral. They showed me pictures from the news. Ice flooded Alessandro's veins. Who are they, Arya, who took you? Who told you these things? I can't, panic rose in her voice. I shouldn't have called if they find out. No, Alessandro forced himself to sound calm. Don't hang up, please, you're safe now. I'll protect you. Just tell me where you are. I'm scared, Papa. The words destroyed him. I know, baby, I know, but I'm here now. Your papa's here and I'm going to make everything okay. Just tell me where you are and I'll come get you. Just me, no one else, I promise. Abigail moved closer, placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. Alessandro covered it with his own, anchoring himself. The shelter, Arya whispered finally. Morrison Street, I'm in the basement. There's a storage room in the back. I've been hiding there. Stay there, Alessandro commanded gently. I'm coming right now. Don't open the door for anyone but me. I'll knock 3 times, pause, then twice more, like I used to when you were little. Remember. A sob. I remember. I'm coming, Arya. Stay strong for me. 10 minutes. He hung up, was already moving toward the door. Abigail followed. I'm coming with you. No, it's too dangerous. If whoever took her is watching. Then you need backup who won't scare her more. Abigail grabbed her jacket. I'm the one who saw her first, who told you she was alive. Let me help you bring her home. Alessandro wanted to argue. Every protective instinct screamed to keep Abigail away from danger. But she was right, and they didn't have time to fight about it. Stay behind me, he ordered. If anything happens, you run, understood. Understood. They took his personal car, no security detail. Just them. Alessandro drove with single-minded focus, breaking every traffic law. Abigail sat silent beside him, her presence somehow both calming and intensifying his emotions. Morrison Street shelter looked abandoned at midday. Most residents were out, seeking work or food or just escaping the institutional bleakness. Alessandro parked behind the building, approached the basement entrance with Abigail close behind. The door was locked. He picked it in 30 seconds, moved through the dark corridor with the ease of someone comfortable in shadows. The storage room was in the back, exactly where Arya had said. Alessandro knocked, 3 times, pause, twice. The door opened a crack, and there she was. Older, thinner, wearing clothes that didn't fit right and carrying trauma in eyes that had seen too much. But his daughter, his Arya, alive. Papa, she whispered, and then she was in his arms, sobbing against his chest like she used to when she was small. Alessandro held her like he'd never let go again, one hand cradling her head, the other wrapped around her thin frame. Tears streamed down his face unchecked. I've got you, Bambina. I've got you. You're safe now. Abigail stood back, giving them space, her own tears falling silently. Finally, Arya pulled back enough to look up at him. I knew you'd come. They said you wouldn't, that you'd forgotten me, but I knew. Never, Alessandro said fiercely. I could never forget you, not for a single second of a single day. He cupped her face. What happened, sweetheart? Who took you? Fear flickered across her features. Not here, please. Can we just go home? Alessandro nodded. Yes, let's go home. He noticed her looking past him at Abigail. This is Abigail. She's the one who told me she saw you. She's the reason I knew to keep looking. Arya studied Abigail with the same intense gaze Alessandro had noticed in himself. You're the girl from the shelter, the one who asked about my necklace. Abigail moved forward carefully. I'm sorry I scared you. I just wanted your father to know you were alive. You saved me, Arya said simply. If you hadn't told him, I might never have been brave enough to call. She looked back at Alessandro. Can she come home with us? I feel safer when she's here. Something warm and dangerous expanded in Alessandro's chest. Yes, she's coming home with us. They left through the back way, Arya sandwiched between them. Alessandro kept scanning for threats, every protective instinct on high alert. But they made it to the car without incident. The drive home was quiet. Arya sat in the back, finally allowing herself to feel safe enough to sleep. Abigail watched her in the mirror, tears still tracking down her face. "Thank you," Alessandro said quietly. "For everything, for seeing her, for telling me, for being here." "I wouldn't be anywhere else," Abigail replied. At the penthouse, Mrs. Chen took one look at Arya and immediately went into action. Food, a bath, clean clothes, a warm bed. Within an hour, Arya was sleeping in her old room, looking younger and more peaceful than she had in years. Alessandro sat in the chair beside her bed, watching her breathe, making sure she was real. Abigail found him there at midnight. "You should sleep too." "I can't. What if this is a dream? What if I wake up and she's gone again?" "It's not a dream." Abigail moved beside him. "She's home, she's safe, you found her." "We found her," Alessandro corrected. "If you hadn't seen her, hadn't come to me." "But I did, and she's home now." Abigail paused. "What happens next?" Alessandro's jaw tightened. "I find out who took her, and I make them pay." Over the next week, the story emerged in painful pieces. Arya had been taken by a rival family, held as leverage to control Alessandro. But the explosion that was supposed to kill him had hidden her disappearance instead. They'd kept her locked up, moving her between locations, always watching. She'd escaped 3 weeks ago when her captors had gotten careless, had been surviving on the streets ever since, too terrified to reach out. Alessandro listened to each detail with a control that terrified his men, because they knew what came after the calm. They knew their boss well enough to recognize the promise of violence in his stillness. But first, he focused on Arya, on helping her heal. Therapists, security, everything she needed to feel safe again. And through it all, Abigail was there. Not pushing, not demanding, just present. A steady, calming influence that both Alessandro and Arya had come to depend on. "She's good for you," Arya said one evening. She and Alessandro were in the kitchen, making dinner together like they used to. Or trying to, neither of them had much cooking skill. Alessandro looked up from the pasta he was massacring. "What?" "Abigail, she makes you smile. I haven't seen you really smile in forever." Arya paused. "You like her." "She's been very helpful." "Papa, I'm 16, not 6. I can see how you look at her." Alessandro set down the spoon. "It's complicated." "Why? Because she was homeless. Because she's younger than you. Because she's not from your world." Arya counted off on her fingers. "Those all sound like excuses to me." "When did you get so wise?" "When I spent 3 years surviving hell." Arya's voice was steady. "It taught me that life's too short to waste on fear. If you care about her, tell her. The world's too scary to face alone." Alessandro pulled his daughter into a hug. "How did I get so lucky to have you as my kid?" "Good genes," she said against his chest. "Now seriously, go talk to her. I'll finish this disaster of a dinner." Alessandro found Abigail on the terrace, looking out at the city. She'd changed since that first night in the cemetery, not just physically, though Mrs. Chen's cooking had added healthy curves to her frame, but something deeper. She'd come back to life, become more herself, the brilliant, compassionate woman she was meant to be. "Arya says I should tell you how I feel," he said, moving beside her. Abigail turned, surprise flickering across her face. "Oh." "She says I look at you differently, that I smile when you're around." Alessandro moved closer. "She's right." "Alessandro." "Let me say this, please." He took a breath. "When you came to me in that cemetery, you gave me back hope, not just about finding Arya, but about life itself. You reminded me that kindness still exists, that compassion matters, that beauty can be found even in darkness." He cupped her face. "You've become essential to me, Abigail, to us, and I don't want you to leave." Abigail's eyes shimmered. "I don't want to leave either, but Alessandro, I'm nobody. I have nothing to offer you. No money, no connections, no." "You have everything I need." He leaned closer. "Your heart, your strength, your impossible ability to see the good in people. That's worth more than any empire." "People will talk. They'll say I'm using you, that I manipulated the situation." "Let them talk. I don't care what anyone thinks except you and Arya." Alessandro's thumb brushed her lower lip. Tell me you feel this too. Tell me I'm not imagining it. You're not imagining it, she whispered. I've been falling for you since that first night, when you mobilized an entire army to find your daughter, when you treated me with kindness instead of suspicion, when you let me see past the dawn to the father underneath. Alessandro kissed her, soft at first, testing, then deeper as she responded. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. He wrapped his arms around her, lifting her slightly, pouring 3 months of longing into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. Stay, not as a guest, as mine. Yours, she agreed. From the doorway, Arya's voice. Finally, I was starting to think I'd have to lock you two in a room. They turned to find her grinning. Alessandro laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. Weren't you supposed to be cooking? I ordered pizza. I'm 16 and traumatized. I'm allowed to quit. She moved between them, took both their hands. So is Abigail staying, like officially? Alessandro looked at Abigail, saw his own hope reflected in her eyes. If she'll have us. I'll have you, Abigail said, both of you. The months that followed brought healing and happiness. Arya slowly recovered, supported by therapy and the security of being home. Alessandro dismantled the organization that had taken her with methodical brutality, making sure no one would ever threaten his family again. And Abigail fit into their lives like she'd always belonged there. She went back to school, finished her degree while living at the penthouse. She and Arya became close, a friendship built on shared strength and survival. And with Alessandro, she built something deeper than either had thought possible. One evening, 6 months after finding Arya, Alessandro came home to find candles lit throughout the apartment. Arya appeared, grinning. Surprise! I planned a romantic dinner. You're welcome. You planned. Abigail's getting ready, you should too. Wear something nice. The dining room's all set up. She shooed him toward his bedroom. Go, and Papa, tonight's important, don't mess it up. Confused but compliant, Alessandro showered and changed. When he emerged, he found the dining room transformed. Candles everywhere, flowers, music playing softly. And Abigail, wearing a green dress that matched her eyes, took his breath away. You look stunning, he managed. She smiled, nervous. Arya helped, she has good taste. They sat, ate the meal Arya and Mrs. Chen had prepared together, talked and laughed, and enjoyed each other's company the way they had every day, but special somehow. After dinner, Abigail stood, held out her hand. Dance with me. Alessandro took it, pulled her close as soft music filled the room. They swayed together, and he realized with sudden clarity what tonight was. You planned this. Arya helped, she admitted. But yes, I wanted tonight to be special. Why? Because I have something to tell you. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I'm pregnant. The world stopped. Alessandro stared at her, processing the words. You're. About 2 months. I found out yesterday. Nervous energy radiated from her. I know we haven't talked about this, about the future, about. Alessandro kissed her quiet. When he pulled back, tears streamed down his face. You're giving me a family again, a future, another chance at happiness. Is that a yes? She asked tremulously. You're happy. I'm beyond happy. He dropped to one knee, pulled a box from his pocket. Inside, a ring emerald surrounded by diamonds. I was saving this for the right moment, but I think you just created it. Abigail gasped. Alessandro. Marry me, Abigail, not because of the baby, though I already love them more than I can express, but because I love you, because you saved me when I was drowning, because you fit into my life and Arya's like you were always meant to be there, because I can't imagine my future without you in it. He took her hand. Marry me, make this family complete. Yes, she breathed. Yes, yes, yes. He slid the ring on her finger, stood, lifted her into his arms, and kissed her like his life depended on it. From the kitchen doorway, Arya cheered. I'm getting a mom and a sibling, she announced. Best day ever. They all collapsed into laughter and tears and hugs, a family rebuilt from ashes and impossible hope. The wedding happened quickly, neither wanted to wait. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Arya served as maid of honor, beaming throughout. Mrs. Chen cried. Alessandro's underboss looked vaguely terrified of the emotion on display. And when Alessandro kissed his bride, when he held Abigail close and promised to love and protect her forever, he meant every word with everything he had. The baby arrived 7 months later, a boy, healthy and loud and perfect. They named him Marco, after Alessandro's father. Arya was immediately obsessed, spending hours with her baby brother, telling him stories and singing to him. "You're going to be the most spoiled baby in New York," Abigail said, watching from her hospital bed as Alessandro held their son, looking at him with wonder. "He deserves it," Alessandro replied. "After everything we went through to get here, this little miracle deserves everything." Arya moved beside him, looked down at her brother. "We all do. We all deserve this happiness." Alessandro looked at his family, his daughter, recovered and strong, his wife, beautiful and brave, his newborn son, innocent and perfect. Everything he'd thought he'd lost forever returned to him against all odds. "I used to think I'd lost everything that mattered," he said quietly. "That night in the cemetery, kneeling at what I thought was my daughter's grave, I was ready to give up." "But you didn't," Abigail said, "because a homeless girl told you the impossible." "Because you told me the impossible," Alessandro corrected. "Because you were brave enough to approach a stranger and give him hope. Because you saw what others missed." "I just paid attention," Abigail said softly, echoing her words from months ago. Alessandro leaned down, kissed her gently. "You saved us all, Abigail Rixai. You saved me, you saved Arya, you gave us Marco. You're our miracle." "We're each other's miracles," she replied. And as Alessandro stood there, surrounded by the family he'd rebuilt from grief and hope and impossible chances, he knew she was right. Sometimes miracles came in unexpected forms. Sometimes they appeared in cemeteries at dusk. Sometimes they came from wrong numbers and homeless girls with haunted eyes and brave hearts. Sometimes they came from believing the impossible, from never giving up, from trusting that love could conquer even the darkest grief. Alessandro Rixai had gone to a cemetery expecting to mourn forever. Instead, he'd found everything. His daughter, alive and healing. A wife who saw through his walls to the man underneath. A son who represented their future, bright and full of promise. All because one brave girl had whispered the words he'd needed to hear. "She's alive." And now, holding his son while his daughter and wife laughed beside him, Alessandro finally believed in miracles again. Believed in hope, in second chances, in the impossible becoming possible. His family was whole, his heart was full, and the man who'd thought he'd lost everything had gained the entire world. This was his happy ending. This was their beginning. And it had all started with a single moment in a cemetery when a homeless girl had given a grieving father the most precious gift of all: hope.